I'm Mike Gordon. I'm a competitor in the shootout. Been a competitor for a lot of years. I race a boat called One Vision. I'm a 2022 Shootout Hall of Famer. A lot of years back in the 90s, I remember coming to watch the shootout, seeing guys like Earl Rand in a Hustler with big motors. Thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Big cigarette called Mr. Cigarette, and all these big boats, big power, and I wanted to do that. And so I bought an old 23 Velocity, ran my first shootout, ran 70, I think, and won my class. And had to learn how to drive the boat a little bit, but it was a learning experience. Started out in that 23 Velocity, and I think I ran 70, 71, something like that, but I learned it was a learning experience. I learned a few things. One, velocities like to chine walk. They're kind of a driver's boat, but I learned to handle that. But my first run down the course, I also learned there's a place on the course called the hole. And you get down the course and all of a sudden your nose is headed toward the moon and you launch in the air a little bit, but I gathered it up and kind of finished the pass, made a good run out of it, and wanted to go back and do it again. Oh God, I have so many great memories of the shootout. Back in those early days when I had that 23 Velocity, one of the first couple of runs, I pull up to the dock, and there's a gentleman standing at the dock as I pull up and shut the engine off, tie up, and this gentleman says, "You know, you run that Velocity pretty good. Those old Velocities, they're tough to drive. You run pretty good. Well, I'm gonna go finish my sandwich." And the gentleman turns around, walks away, and to find out that was Mr. Bob Morgan. That was the first time I actually met him in person, and went on to got to know Bob really well over the years. Over the years, you always want to go faster, and you have other guys that are right there nipping at your heels. And I discovered nitrous oxide, 800 RPM at the touch of a button, 200 extra horsepower. It was great. But I learned a lot of old sayings. Lean is mean, but not for long was one of them. And a 454 turning almost 6,000 RPMs goes from a really sweet sound to the sound of a trash can full of ball-peen hammers real quick. That ended that run. Well, I remember back the shootout started out as a benefit for a lot of the local fire departments and for local charities. So great event, and it was run by a lot of the local firefighters. And you know, so everybody wanted to donate to the cause, and it was great seeing all the performance boats around, but you also made so many great friends. There's so many people that I've met from the shootout that I later met when I started racing in the APBA Pro Series. There were so many guys that had started at the shootout that got into professional racing. There's also so many guys in professional racing that had heard of the shootout. In fact, one year APBA scheduled a race the same weekend as the shootout, and I suggested that might be a mistake. And somebody said they won't miss Pro Series points for some local event come around that year. A lot of the Pro Series boats all came here to the Lake of the Ozarks at the shootout. They missed the race. There are so many huge names in performance boating and even in professional racing that a lot of them either are somehow associated with the shootout, started in the shootout. There are so many professionals racing professional offshore series that started out here at the shootout that I got to know them, they got to know me. And then every year, all those big time, big name, big boat racers come to Lake of the Ozarks for the shootout. And it got to be such great camaraderie among everybody. And we're competitors, but everybody just wants to go fast. And you want to see the other guy go fast. And it's a lot of fun. You're almost cheering each other on. I got a phone call from a good friend of mine, Carrie Sixkiller, the young gal, well known with the shootout, actually I was with them when they bought the 24 Outlaw that they run. Kind of ran with Carrie a little bit. When she wanted to know how to go fast, I kind of got in the boat and helped her a little bit, and she just kind of a natural, and so I got a phone call from her And I was thinking, she's going to want to borrow my magic race props. But instead, she called to tell me that I had been inducted into the Hall of Champions. Actually, I didn't have any words. I was speechless. I couldn't believe it. I was overjoyed. I'd like to thank Brad Harrington, of course, Chad Prater, Brian Baldry. They helped me work on my boat quite a bit over the last few years. Good friends of mine, Brad and Rhonda Ham, who were always there, kind of helping me test, helping me work on my boat a little bit, and offering some different propellers to try, and a few different things. But most importantly, I got to thank my wife. My wife Jeanette has, when we first got married, she really didn't know a lot about performance boating, but she was one of the first girls I met that actually loved going 80 miles an hour in a boat. So next thing you know, we're married. And she's always been there to support me every year for the shootout, and always ready to go for a boat ride.